Welcome to the Nordic Mythology podcast. I'm Daniel Farrand, owner of the company Horns of Odin, and I'm joined, as always, by Dr. Matthias Nordvig.
Hello. This time we're joined by Benny Bråten from Folket Borta for Northwind. And also, one of the masterminds behind the bloody ritual at the Midgardsblot festival. Welcome to the show, Benny.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. And as I said before the show, I'm embarrassed to admit that I only today realized that you are brothers with Shell. So obviously you have the same surname. I should have maybe conned on sooner. You look quite similar. You sound pretty much the same. But for some reason, I just did not twig that you and Shell were brothers.
It's not your task to investigate my family and relations, maybe?
I guess not, but it is not a hard link to make, I don't think.
It shouldn't be.
So you said before that there's three of you. Are you all musically minded?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
With Skvalder, the band that both Kjell and Gustav and I and Maria from Heilung and that we had before Folke, and this Tor Egil, our older brother, was also sometimes playing with us.
Cool.
Is he retired now?
Nah, he's not retired, but his life has, for the last few years, taken him on other paths.
Mm.
So,
yeah, life does that.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool though. A family of scouts. I like that.
Yeah, I played with my older brother for many years in different settings.
That's good. Did the three of you ever just get a chance to jam and just get together and play at all?
Nah, we hardly see each other. So I'm living in Telemark now, and Kjell is living somewhere outside of Bergen, and Tor Egil is living in a place called Drøbak. So for me to go there by car would take me, I don't know, 4.5, 5 hours maybe.
Okay.
For Kjell, it would be, I guess, 8-9 hours to get to his place. So
that's what we call a short trip in America.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I know. I feel like that's insane that people just drive that regularly in the USA.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like 3-4 hours. That's like yeah. Like Jackie and I did that when we went from Seattle to Portland to see Heilung a second time. So that was like a 3-hour drive. Mm-hmm. Right after I had gotten my arm tattooed, so I was sitting there with a bloody arm in the car.
You're gonna mention this bloody tattoo again.
Oh well, I was just...
I'm joking. I'm joking. Benny, yeah. So let's start with the ritual at Midgardsblot, because it was my first time ever being there, my first time seeing what you do as the ritual, and I didn't really know what to expect. How long have you been doing the ritual?
Oh, we've been doing it. When did we start it at Midgardsblot? I think maybe. I think it's been from the second year.
Mm-hmm. So very early on.
I don't know if I'm correct about this, but in my experience, the reason it came to be the ritual was that we were opening the first Midgardsblot with Folke when they opened the gate and let people in, and we were directly on there. And the first year we were playing 3 times a day and all acoustic.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we were starting the first gig, if you like, I was saying to Gustav, the directions. So then we blew the horns in the different directions, and then we went on with our stuff. And I think maybe that's what triggered it, or made Runa ask if we could do it.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So can we let's for obviously a lot of people that listen to this will have been to Midgardsblot, but there'll be a lot more who haven't had the chance to go. So can we quickly run through what the ritual is, kind of what happens, so people can get an idea of that, I guess?
Yeah. I think it's first of all, I think it's a great chance really to open a festival, a music festival, because I mean there's a lot at Midgardsblot that doesn't really directly have to do with music. I think that's one of the fantastic things about this festival. That is, I would say it's about life and and I think to have the chance of opening that in a spiritual setting, if you like, I think is fantastic. I mean, I grew up with what was in the 80s was metal, you know. I guess today it would be considered maximum hard rock. You know? But I know that in the rock community then, so to speak, there is a lot of spiritual searching, you know, and to then be able to, I guess you can say we host it, yeah. A spiritual start of the whole thing. I think it's wonderful. And we have always said that it's not a Norse blot.
Yeah.
And we don't follow any rules from anything. We had criticism after, I think it was the first or second year, there was somebody from England or at least somewhere in the UK, and there was some comments on social media or something that we were not doing it right.
And that's the problem with this whole community at times, that everybody says that everybody's doing it wrong and nobody can ever agree on what's right because nobody knows what's right.
Well, no, that's a really interesting discussion because, you know, like, so the way that I remember how this blot goes, right? You have a situation where you have statues of the Nordic gods. You have a bowl with blood in it. I don't know if it's fake blood. I haven't tasted it, but it looks like blood. And people are using it to like, you know, smear it on the statues, smear it on themselves, and a lot of other things. And you know, we that at least that part we have described in the sagas. So it's, you know, it's greatly inspired by the literature that we have available. Now, the funny thing about these texts that we have that describe these bloody blot rituals is that they've actually been criticized by a lot of scholars for probably just mimicking descriptions of Jewish rituals. So when somebody comes and says, "Hey, you're not doing it right according to the texts," they might actually be the ones who don't understand the texts. So, like, you never really know.
Shock that someone in this kind of community is wrong or misinformed about something, but wants to then tell other people what to do.
Yeah.
I'm thinking we're talking about a time where most people were what you call it, illiterate. They couldn't read. Yeah. So how strong rules can you have? They didn't have a manual. I mean, you have to go by intention, you know, and do it as good as you can from your intention.
Yeah.
Somebody once said that making plans is a good way of making the gods laugh.
I like that.
Yeah, I guess they would be different every time, and also geographically where you are in the world, and also what time period you're in. It would be completely different, and that's what I was wondering, Benny. Is yours different every time, or do you do the same thing each year?
The frame is the same, but I mean we don't plan it. You know, we go there and. Usually, I mean, we always have an introduction, and this year it was very short because there was a lot of people, and we have a limited time for it because the first band goes on. So this year we had 2 hours. So therefore, it was a friend of ours who was writing on social media that Midgardsblot has invented speed blotting. I love it. You know, we had to kind of rush it to make everybody come in, and when we had the curfew, to call it that, there was a few people left, that hadn't been in the circle yet. And there was, I think it was a woman, I don't remember. Somebody came to me and said, yeah, you leave the last 15 people. And I said, no, please go in. But we have to cut it now. So they got to go in and do their thing as well. But usually it's been a little bit longer introduction, because we usually make it very clear. This time it was, I think, published on social media, and this before, that we usually make it very clear that we don't care where you're from, social status, religious beliefs, if you have any. We don't care about this stuff. We don't care if you go into the circle because you want as much blood in your face as possible and a cool selfie to share with your friends after. If that's what you want to do, well, that's fine. But there is also people going in there that is doing it. It means a whole lot for people. Some people.
Yeah.
And but I will get back to that. But usually we have an introduction where we say this kind of stuff. And the only thing we're asking for, or almost demanding, is that I usually say, as long as it's for the good. Meaning, as long as whatever you do it with good intentions. We don't want people to come in there and wish somebody bad.
No. It's all about respect, I think, as well. You don't have to always believe in where you're like, I enjoy going to cathedrals, if I'm on holiday, and I'm not Christian, I'm far from it, but I enjoy going in, and I always treat it with respect, and I am in awe of what's created. I don't agree with everything, but you have that respect, and that's all that you can ask for, I guess.
Yeah. So that is usually the start, and then we blow the horns in the different directions, and usually Gustav is calling some names. We usually invite, since this is in a kind of Norse setting, it's a Viking metal festival, we are calling or inviting Odin, Thor, Freya, and Loki, and or Freya and Frey. But those are usually the only names that we use. And then
there's probably going to be somebody out there who's getting his panties in the bunch right now over you calling on Loki.
But I mean, what's this story about the feast under the water where Loki wasn't invited? That wasn't a good idea, was it?
Exactly.
So I'm thinking he should be allowed to come as well.
Yeah. He curses the gods in the end and says, "May your asses burn." So that'll tell you.
If you don't invite him, he's going to turn up anyway.
Oh yeah.
But I'm thinking, why not invite them?
Yeah.
I mean,
hey, you can only so again. For people who haven't been, you have the balls of blood, and then the branches that are used. So it's not smearing onto the I guess I don't know, is idols the right word? What would be the statues, the god statues? So it's not smearing on them with kind of bare hand. It's you have these branches that are dipped into the blood, and then you use them to kind of strike the statues, and then I guess you can put a little bit on your face if you choose to. If not, if you're in the crowd, maybe you get splattered by people swinging their branches, a bit of collateral damage. So what is there a significance to the branches? I think when we were there, Matej, you mentioned something.
Yeah, I mean, I can just give a brief rundown of that, like standard description of what blot is in the saga literature. So we have a couple of sagas that describe ritual acts in context of temples, and especially in context of Yule, the midwinter feast. We have Erbykja saga. It gives us some details on the rituals that take place in a temple dedicated to Thor near Helgafell in Iceland. And then we have the saga of Haakon the Good, where he's a Norwegian king, and he's trying to rein in the problematic earls who are reigning over the area near Trondheim today. And he goes to this feast. He's a Christian according to the story. That's probably not actually true. He was baptized, but he was probably actually a fallen, because as soon as he came back to Norway from England, he was like, never mind. But Snorri, when he's writing this, the Heimskringla, and he wants to represent sort of like the history after Harold Finehair as sort of like a single dynasty, and they're all just like more or less Christian. Like that's how he likes to portray it. So the situation is that Haakon, he goes to visit in Mera, and he's then forced to participate in this blot ritual where they're sacrificing animals. And the description goes that they take the blood from the animals and collect it in these hløybotli, is what they're called. So that means blood bowls. And then they have these hløyteinar, blood twigs that they dip in the blood, and then they sprinkle the blood on the statues in the temple and the walls, on everybody there, and so on. So that's sort of like that's very much on point with the description what happens at Midgardsblot, I would say. And I think, as I mentioned before, there are scholars that have essentially said, well, actually, this very much looks like that the saga writers, they were familiar with certain rituals that take place in Judaism, where you sprinkle I think it's ochre water on the Torah and the altar and such. So these scholars, they've said, well, actually, these saga writers probably didn't know anything about what took place in the Viking Age. So they're just basically using Jewish rituals to furnish sort of like their descriptions. And that's a possibility, but I'd also say that it's very likely that this is close to what historically has happened in temple buildings. Like there's some locations where we have, the archaeology of these central sites that we find around in Scandinavia that you could call temples. Quite often they show evidence of a lot of blood sacrifices, and it makes perfect sense because that's usually what has been happening prior to the introduction of Christianity. You go back to ancient Rome or Greece, and you see the same thing. So I mean, you can easily assume, I would say, that at least the core of these descriptions is likely to be accurate. So that's how those rituals go, and then in modern times we interpret that in the ways that makes most sense to us.
It's Gustav every year making these twigs, or what you call them. And it's not random. He doesn't go out in the forest and just grab a few bushes, Mm-hmm. It's 7, I believe, 7 or 9, but I believe it's 7 different kind of trees, and it's the same every year. So usually when we prepare for the blot, this year it was him and Runahild going out to collect the branches and make the twigs, and I'm doing the practicalities on the ceremony place, And get the fire pan, get the wood, and all this stuff. So I cannot say what kind of branches it is because I honestly don't know. Mm-hmm. I've been told it, but I don't remember all of them.
I wouldn't remember 7 either.
No. So
God forbid if it's 9, fucking no chance.
I'm pretty sure I was told it was 9, which makes a lot of sense with the prevalence of the number 9 in the mythology.
No, but anyways, that's then we've started it, and this whatever you do, the good intention thing. And when we have more time, we've said, if you want to honor your ancestors, your some relative, if you want to call for some deities or whatever, you do whatever you want. If you want your selfie, fine,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, but we open it and do a little thing, and then we start drumming, and usually there's a lot of people joining in on that.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's kind of funny because it's become, apart from us, there's 2-3 more people that are kind of in it now. that
Yeah.
just came, but they are there every year now drumming. And it's not-
Okay. They snuck in.
yeah, but it's nice, we're standing there for, almost 2 hours. So it's good to have some help.
Absolutely, I bet. So what do you think the significance to blood is? Because I guess today would be, most people would think it's abhorrent for people to be smearing blood on statues and throwing it on it and putting it on their face. At least people outside of like this community, the average Joe.
Yeah, but
You asking me?
Both, you can both answer.
I would like to answer that one. I mean, you also, Matthias, of course. But I'm thinking, well, people, there's always going to be somebody criticizing what you do, whatever you do, And if you follow the critics from one side and you do it the way they want, somebody's going to be on the other side and criticize it because you don't do it the way you did it. So somebody's always going to have something to complain about. So I don't think we can care about that. We try to make it as open as possible, the whole thing. And I've had people that consider themselves atheists say that they feel welcome and included also.
Mm-hmm.
So then I guess we kind of succeed in having it open. Because to me, before I get into the blood, to me, it's, it doesn't matter if you want to go to the top of the mountain. It doesn't matter what path you take. The only path that will not take you there is the one going around in the bottom.
Mhm.
So whatever it takes, if this can, and this is what I'm hoping, and I know for some people this is happening, if we can contribute to, make it easier maybe then for yourself to open some kind of spiritual space inside yourself,
Mhm.
and I think it's great. And then to the blood, of course, Matthias, it's not fake blood. This year it was even horse blood.
Oh,
nice.
even better.
Yeah, I think that's quite good with the sagas, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Usually it's been pig's blood because that has been what we've managed to get. But this year somebody said, "Hey, why do you use that? I can get you horse blood." And we all went, "Oh, that's cool,"
Yeah.
So this year it was horse blood. But I'm thinking we don't need that. We don't need the statues. We don't need any of this because it's all within. That's the whole point. Everything is within. But if the blood is helping you to get into a setting where you can open up these things, then I'm thinking the blood is a good thing.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Traditionally, I think the blood was because you were sacrificing something that was dear to you. You were sacrificing one or more of your animals. You gave something that had, great value and importance in your life. And you gave this in the ritual. I think that's where the blood came from. That's what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we get the blood from some butcher, so this part is not there. But I'm thinking, as I said, if it helps people get into the setting, to get into this kind of frame inside themselves, I think it's a great thing.
Mhm.
I'm also doing sound journeys and some different kinds of music healing things. And I remember some years ago, a friend of mine, we had some sessions, and I was usually saying some stuff out loud in the beginning, like a little bit opening the bloat, the directions and all this. And then one time I wasn't, fully energized and all this. So I did it inside myself. I did it quiet because I was feeling a little shy. And then I asked my friend after how that was. And he said for him, it was better when I said it loud because it helped him to get into the atmosphere,
Mhm.
And I think the blood, it works in the same way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean, and that's what we humans do, right? We find objects and substances and actions that can bring us into that spiritual space, and then that is part of creating the whole experience, right?
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense. If we look at the mythology, if we dare to compare what Snorri Sturluson wrote in his mythology then we can also see we can conclude that blood has a deep significance, because when the three Borsinir, Odin, Vili, and Ve, they kill Ymir, at least according to Snorri Sturluson, right? Essentially what is happening is that like Ymir's blood spills out, and Snorri tells us that it drowns all the Hrimthursar. And a lot of this, his version of this creation story has been like has like a Christian interpretation to it, but you could actually consider that this explanation of the blood drowning the Hrimthursar and thereby making the world inhabitable by humans is an act that creates fertility, that makes the world fertile and the place where we can live. So it can mirror that process of sacrificing an animal and using its blood in all of these different contexts, of like, smearing it on things that need to get that life-giving power. And there is a general tendency, both in skaldic poetry and also in the mythology in general, to associate water with blood, like the water of the world, because it comes from Ymir. So it all really comes together sort of as a perfect little way of perceiving the world as something that is permeated by Ymir's blood, that is life-giving, right? So if we do interpret the mythology in context of what we otherwise see archaeologically, I think it makes perfect sense.
Could it be that they thought maybe that the blood is maybe quite literally some sort of life itself, just in the sense that I'm trying to go back to a time where you don't have the understanding of modern science and biology, anatomy, and how things work. And when you sacrifice something, it's very visual, the blood leaving the body. It's something kind of leaving this thing that was once alive and it's now dead. And it's the blood that you kind of really see that kind of is gone. It leaves the body. So could that be it?
Yeah. And also you should consider it as maybe like the seat of spirit as well. Like I've ranted about this before, that I've like done this long, like basically compiled a list of all deities, supernatural beings, whatever you want to call them, that we can attach to the northwestern European area through Snorri Sturluson's Edda, but also votive stones from the Rhineland area, and like in that 1,000 years from the year 0 up until the end of the Viking Age, when Christianity has taken over. And it's quite fascinating actually to see that there are so many water spirits, so many beings that these peoples are attaching to water itself. So they definitely had an idea that water and liquids of various kinds contain spirit, right? And I would say that I'm sure that they thought that way about blood as well. That is where you find the spirit of a person or the spirit of an animal and so on. And so again, if we go back to all of these metaphors and analogies that basically combine water and blood in the world and in the body as that thing that has spirit, it makes perfect sense actually.
Water has memory.
Yeah. Huh?
Water has memory.
water has memory, right?
Yeah.
That's also what we see in Urðabrunn, right? Because, you have all the water that goes up circulates through Yggdrasil and then comes into the well. And the well is where you find history, right? Odin has to go to Sökkvabekk, this hall underneath the water, to talk with Sauga about, all the numinous knowledge that's present out there in the world. So, yeah.
They've done experiments. I cannot confirm them. I can only say what I've heard about these experiments. I'm not a scientist and I wasn't there, but they say that they've done.
Well, I'm taking them as facts, no matter what you say. So,
but they've done experiments where they put different flowers into water, and they say that when I don't know how they do that, but I guess they use some kind of a microscope or something. And they take the flowers out of the water, and then they see the print in the water of the kind of flower that was in there. So in this pot you had a rose. Well, you could see the rose in the water after you took it out. And here you had a tulip or whatever, just to say some other flower. And you had the print in the water molecules. Mm-hmm. So water carries memory.
Wow. That's really interesting.
It is really interesting.
Yeah.
So
he might have made it up. He did see it was a disclaimer at the start. He could have made that up, but I'm still going to believe it. I'm going to tell everybody that now.
Yeah. I didn't make it up, at least, No, I mean, after this, Google it and check it out.
No, I believe you. I don't need to.
So it's interesting, So,
absolutely, yeah.
But then back to the Blot, since you have your meeting, Matthias, I think we could sit here for many hours.
we could, and we could just talk about everything, it seems.
Yeah.
I think we've done like 35 minutes already.
Yeah. We should talk about something else as well. But being there and doing the drumming, because now we've gone through the introduction and how, then it just flows, people come in and they do their thing. Some people shout loud and, spill a lot of blood around, and some people do it more quiet. But for us being in there, I can speak for myself, but I also know, of course, that this is for many of the others that are in there doing the drumming and this, because you feel sometimes and you see sometimes that, whoa, now it is really deep. This really means something. There are moments where they were there. I think they're French, a family that has been there several times. Now they went in as a family with the mother and father and 2 children, I believe. But I remember from 2019, I remember then the father and one of the children, a son, came in together. Like a little kid, I don't know, 5 years old maybe or something like that. And they went in and they had their moment. The dad was sitting down next to the child and they approached the statue and they did their thing. And this is so incredibly beautiful. Mm-hmm. I know that people that have come there from, one now is a brother, but he came from Colorado to Midgardsblot. And he had a new start in life. He was struggling at the time seeing purpose, and he came there and he took part in the ceremony. He had his moment. I still remember he came in there. I felt it in my whole being, like, whoa, now we need to help this guy, so started pumping more and started throat singing just to, back him up. Because I felt, whoa, this really means something. And he came up after and he had a restart of his life. This is really beautiful. And there are many stories. There are some stories that I've chosen now not to share because, but there are some things that have happened in these ceremonies that are really, really, really strong. Mm-hmm. It means a lot for some people. And it's wonderful. I'm not saying anything against those people that, some people, maybe they see it as a show and they want to take part in the show. And that is great. I'm not criticizing that at all. But it is so strong, when you're standing there and you feel it, that wow, now something that is really deep is happening. That makes it worth 2 hours of drumming,
It must be special that you get to share that moment with them as well.
Yeah, and that we kind of get to facilitate this,
Yeah.
This is wonderful.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, if there was one, and I know there are more than one, by now there are quite a few every year that has really, really strong, deep moments. But if there was one every year, it would be worth drumming for 2 hours,
Yeah.
One,
speaking to this, diversity of thought and attitude, essentially, right? Like, this is also what we historically have seen in pre-Christian rituals and in ancient Rome and in Greece. We see it today in India as well. Like, there are people who very much believe in the gods, and to them it's a very strong ritual and religious experience. And to others who are more atheistic in their approach or skeptical, whatever you want to call it, right? They have another experience. Some care to join, some don't, and so on and so forth. And that's essentially like the diversity of relating to ritual and to these ideas that we have as humans, that there are beings outside of us that we can communicate with. And so that makes perfect sense that we also have that diversity present at Midgardsblot.
I think this is wonderful, and I think we should. And that's the thing about this whole Viking fashion thing, that is happening now. Because I think it's important that we don't build it on dogmas. If we come in here and we make a strict set of rules, well, what's the point then? I think, okay, if I believe in one, whether we call it this or that great spirit or whatever, I think we are all one. So Odin, you, we are all a part of the same energy or frequency or whatever you want to call it. This is how I, at the present stage, see things. And what if, when everything was one, there is nothing to experience, is there? So what if creation was simply that this one great spirit, or whatever name or title you want to use, started creation in order to experience itself? That we are all a part of the one experiencing itself, which means that every experience is as important as every other experience, because it's just experience. To me, when I came to this understanding, or whatever you can say, it's a great relief in a way, because in one way it makes everything less important, but at the same time it makes everything more important. Does it make sense?
Well, yes. Well, I guess what comes with that is also sort of for lack of a better word, mandate, right? To be part of that experience. And that's what I think, when you say it makes it less important, but also more important, right? Like, I think that's what hints at the higher value of participating in the experience of existence, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Takes away the help me translate, Mathias. Selvhøytidelighet.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's how do we self-inflatedness or something like that? It's ego, the inflatedness of the ego, right?
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't do this perfect, but it doesn't matter. I gave it my best. I think this is maybe the most important we can do, is whatever we do. And I'm thinking, for me, there is a golden rule. You try not to hurt anybody. Yeah. Humility is somewhere Kelly Tannenbaum. Humility is an important thing, I think. But as long as we do what we can not to hurt anybody, and we do things with a pure intention.
Yeah.
And
I think we all need to remember that sometimes and not get so frustrated. It goes back to when we had Katya on the other week. We kind of went over this as well. Is just be nice to each other. Just be nice. And just take a moment to understand you don't know what somebody else is doing. And I do it. Sometimes I get frustrated and I'm like, fucking swearing at myself, or I can feel myself getting hit up. And it's just like, it's over the smallest things. It's like the silliest thing that sometimes you just need to breathe and recenter yourself and think, well, maybe that person has had a really, really shitty day. Maybe something terrible has happened to them today, and you don't know.
I'm thinking, I love to listen to the birds. Yeah. And very often they tell me things that at the moment is very important. And for example, if I'm really frustrated, because of course I am as well, I'm totally pissed off at myself sometimes, and then I sit. I live in a beautiful place in the countryside. Yeah, I sit outside, and then suddenly I'm looking at a bird, and it flies to the top branch, the top part of a branch in the tree, and it looks around and it's whistling its beautiful song, and it's telling me like, "Hey, relax, man. It's not that important. Go to the top of the tree." For me, maybe it sounds like mumbo jumbo, but to me, this is important. It's helping me.
It sounds it. Yeah, I talk to birds too. Daniel was surprised to hear that I talk to squirrels too. He wants to know how they sound.
I mean, back to the one. The oneness. We are all a part of the same, in my understanding of things. So I don't have any more right or reason to be here than any other creature.
I agree.
I listen to trees. Sometimes when I've been struggling in my experience of this life, trees have been helping me out. Stones, and literally, I've been given messages, really helpful things at the time. And then, okay, if you're an atheist or I don't know, whatever, maybe you want to say, blah, 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 it's bullshit. But then again, it doesn't matter if it's bullshit as long as it's helping me. And my experience then is that I'm getting help from the tree.
If it's real to you, then it's real.
Yeah.
It's that simple. We've lost so much connection to this. I put a bunch of flowers, a bunch of plants in here, and it just lifts things. It just makes you feel better. And for whether it's psychosomatic or there's something genuinely tangible there, it's just an amazing thing. And, it's no surprise that I've been through a tough time lately, and I've just got Rocco, the little puppy, and, having him around and having the little friend that it doesn't, I can speak to him. He doesn't have to talk back to me. But he just sits there and looks at me and twists his head and listens. And we have this bond, and we communicate in a different way. But I mean, he's helped me as much as my friends have, my family has, as much as Alyssa has. Like, he's really helped me through a tough time just by being there and being this little bundle of love. And he doesn't have to talk back to me. He doesn't have to do anything. He just has to look at me with those big dumb eyes, and it just makes the day better.
No.
But it's also, if we approach the world with this this notion that you're expressing, Benny, that you can either see it as like everything in the world is part of the same spirit, or you can see it as everything in the world has a spirit that is like mine, right? Then there's also essentially a reason to create relations and relationships to all the things around you, right? There's a reason to observe birds and talk to them and understand what it is that they're doing and reflect that back into yourself. As for instance, it's something that can be helpful, right? That's one of the things that we seem to have lost a lot here in the modern world, right? That there's not a lot of people who think like that, and a lot of people will probably think that we sound pretty damn crazy when we're talking about it. But as somebody who teaches about mythologies and folklore from the general Nordic realm and also like the circumpolar area. For instance, I teach a course on Arctic culture and society where we learn about a lot of indigenous populations in the Arctic. And one of the things I highlight to my students over and over again is that they should go talk to the squirrels out there in the university park, because it's quite fascinating. If you look at the mythology, we have Yggdrasil, right? And at the bottom of Yggdrasil, we have the snake. I'd like to think of Nidhogg more as a snake than a dragon, because it is an orm. And we have all these other snakes there in the roots. And then at the top, we have an eagle with a hawk sitting on top of it, right? And we have a squirrel that runs up, back and forth, up and down the tree trunk to deliver messages between the eagle and the snake. And you can find exactly that image right there in what is otherwise sort of like a green desert, because it's like these, quads that are like nicely cut grass, and they're full of glyphosate, I'm sure, and they use like leaf blowers with that use gasoline to blow leaves away and all that stuff. You can still find that beautiful image right there, because we have snakes there too. We have little garden snakes that live in the grass. We have the squirrels that go up and down all the time, and there are birds that sit in the top of the tree. So like literally you can find the sort of like the emblematic Old Norse cosmos on a lawn right down there in Boulder.
Isn't there a little trickster aspect also to Ratatosk?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and doesn't this? It struck me now. Doesn't this symbolize that? Yeah, you can have the messenger, but when all comes down to it, you need to go inside and trust yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
maybe this is a part of this the trickster in Ratatosk, running up and down with the messages, but not necessarily all the time giving the accurate message.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
yeah, and I think actually the way that it's phrased in the mythology is that he's delivering insults, right? So that tells you everything about actually more about the relationship between the snake and the eagle, right? They're taking whatever he's delivering as insults. But we don't actually know if it's insults. It's within them and their interpretation of whatever is being said.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. I was looking forward to this conversation, and so far I'm enjoying it very much.
Wonderful.
Good, I'm glad. Is there any topic that you want to touch on? I know we're just shy of an hour now, and I know you had some topics. We've got your music to discuss. I know you had a whole list of things.
Yeah.
I mean, you're welcome back anytime, so we can definitely book you in again if we don't get to everything.
Yeah. No, I would like to talk about, of course, about the music.
Yes, absolutely.
But I think also maybe an important theme, but this we could speak about for 3 hours, of course, is this fashion, because now, I mean, when we started this, there was this so-called genre of music. There was nothing. You had Harald Foss, fantastic. and a couple of other things, but there wasn't anything. There wasn't really a scene or anything. And now over the last few years, it's exploded into some kind of enormous fashion, and you have all the record labels wanting a new Vardruna, or I'm pretty sure that in a couple of years' time, you're going to be able to buy plastic antlers at the H&M or Walmart. So, and I'm thinking there's a great thing about this, because, and what has always fascinated me since I joined in this, I've been doing the Viking market since, on a regular basis every year since 2002. My first meeting with this, I forgot when I was talking to Jameson the other day. My first meeting with this was back in '95. Some people were organizing something called Verdandis heathen cultural Verdandis hedenske kulturmønstring.
The Verdandis heathen, well, I guess cultural, community calling, like it's like you're calling people to you, right? That's what mønstring means, right?
Yeah. So it was basically, it was a music festival. It was when it was 1,000 years of Christianity in Norway. So the slogan was 1,000 years is more than enough. It was on t-shirts. that was the first time I kind of met this. There's another subject that I think whatever you take, when you take faith and spirituality and you make it into religion, then it's already politics. Then you've moved away from the spiritual aspect of it and you've made it into politics. Because I think the teachings that they claim to promote, I'm not saying they do that, but what they claim to promote, they're wonderful, and there is very little, I don't see a reason for conflict with anybody in there. It's animistic, non-hierarch. Oh, that's a difficult word. There's no hierarchy.
Yes.
I know, and all this stuff, but yeah, that was it. I was moving off now, but when this has now over the last few years turned into a fashion, that was where I wanted to go. There are certain dangers to it, and we've seen this for many years already, that there is a tendency amongst some people to I like to call it elitism. Is that the proper English word? Yeah. And I think if we fall into that trap, well, then we are wasting a great potential. I'm thinking this, and this is the reason, here it comes, that I have been fascinated with this, because for me, going into this Viking world was an option of being met on my spiritual journey, my spiritual exploration, in a setting that is with nature and the multiverse. So that is my entrance to this whole thing. And when it turns into fashion, there is a danger of this disappearing. And if we are not aware of this, I'm thinking this whole thing might turn very ugly. I know already that at Midgardsblot this year, a young American guy, wonderful guy, he came to me and asked if I thought it was okay for him wanting to make Nordic music or whatever, if you like. And I'm like, yeah, why not? If it speaks to you, do it. I know there's one guy sitting in Spain that he has a strong passion for this, and he's been given a lot of, not nice things on the internet because he's Spanish. So he's not supposed to be allowed to be interested in this.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous. I don't know. It's just, again, it goes back to the people we said earlier, the know-it-alls who kind of tell people what to do. It's those same kind of peoples who want to gatekeep and say who can and can't. Listen.
And Sophie there is right. Yes, the Vikings did go to Spain.
Yeah, and they got their asses kicked, by the way. But no, it's a really good point that you're raising here. It goes back also to these people who are criticizing the Blot and all that stuff for not being accurate, right? These are people who want to establish dogmas about what is essentially a living culture, right? I'm like you. I the first time I got into Viking related stuff was through Viking markets in Denmark in the mid 90s. It was like a liberating atmosphere to go to these camps where you could sit around a fire and experience social life and nature on entirely different terms, right? It opens up a space that is new and creative, and it's it's placed in a historical time period that a lot of us are also capable of infusing with our own imagination in different ways for different reasons, right? And whereas doing that with the 19th century, it doesn't work. Doing it with these the 16th century doesn't work either, right? But going beyond those time periods, that's when it starts working. You see the same thing with medieval markets too, I think. People enjoy them on the same level and in the same way, so to speak. And then now there's this push towards establishing dogma, establishing rules for how this can work. And it's interesting to see too that I wouldn't say that it's not often that you see Scandinavians trying to do that. It's usually people that aren't Scandinavian who are doing it, right? And that comes, I think, primarily from a need in these individuals to feel closer to that stuff themselves. Because if you're, for instance, you've grown up in America, you've done a lot to learn a lot about Scandinavian history and the cultures and all that stuff, then it's easier for you to establish yourself as some kind of the cool shit in town if you're then knocking these other people and saying, oh, you can't be part of this because of your ethnic heritage or the lack of knowledge or whatever it is, right? And it's all it's generally just people being dicks when they shouldn't be.
Right? Yeah. But it's I don't mean to insult you now because you're an academic, right?
Yes.
Oh, insult him. Get him.
No, but the point is, unless, it's great to have the education. It's great to read the sources and have the knowledge about this. But unless you make it yours, and I think it's important to be humble in the whole thing. It just proves that you have a good memory. You've managed to memorize what somebody else wrote or told you at some point. It doesn't.
Well, you also
know about it. Huh? Now you were falling out. Can you repeat, please?
Yes, that if you're a good academic, you're also producing knowledge yourself, right? You also, exactly. Yeah.
But that also means that you should be open for other people to, have their own experiences and, make it their own. I'm not criticizing having an education, but I'm thinking it's important that we move beyond just memorizing what somebody told us, And that
Absolutely.
We need to have acceptance for other opinions and views also.
Yeah.
I think we've got obsessed with a world of right and wrong when it used to be black and white kind of, and not applying things to yourself and how it works. And the whole gray area in between, everybody just wants to know the answer. It's either one thing or the other, when usually it's not.
Everybody knows the answer is 42.
The answer is 42.
Well, that's also why this podcast, like our motto is, it's complicated. And as some could see on my Instagram stories yesterday, I think it was, like there's a wonderful meme out with me and Dan, where Dan is asking me something about the Viking Age, and my response is that all I can say is that my gut says maybe.
Yeah, I saw that one. I thought, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
See, that, there's a great example of how academics ruin the experience of the Viking Age. And that's actually the Mosgard Viking market, which is, I believe, the oldest, or one of the oldest Viking markets, and definitely one of the biggest. It was so great going there in the 90s. And then over time, it's just gotten more and more annoying. And now it's just a tourist trap. And one of the reasons for that is that they have been included more and more in the museum, the prehistoric museum, and its activities there. And for instance, there was this hilarious, in a tragic, comical sense, hilarious situation where, for instance, the archaeologists at the museum said, well, everybody who comes to this market must now only use period correct materials for their tents. So that means getting like these really expensive woolen tents that nobody could afford, stuff like that, right? And that's not helpful in terms of actually making the Viking Age and all of this stuff accessible to the public, right? Because that is elitism right there. You only have preference for people who, first of all, submit to your standards of period correctness, and two, have the money to do it, right? Yeah. So yeah, that's a big problem that you see with, and there's a general problem with how academics at large tend to relate to people who are using their historical knowledge in their contemporary world, and thereby, also making it inauthentic in quotation marks, right? I'd say it's not inauthentic. It is actually authentic because it's cultural use, and culture is authentic. Like it's humans doing human things.
Yeah.
How, I always wonder with that, like how accurate do we know? Because I assume for the most part, it's particularly with cloths and clothing, surely it's kind of just what we found. Because I've heard things of reenactments and groups saying that you have to have so many stitches, or being as anal as that, as down to like how many stitches you have to have in a tunic or whatever. And like surely it just depends on what's been found. And people are a whole range of different, from super lazy to really particular. So you're going to get a spectrum of what people create, from shit to good.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because.
No, sorry.
I was just going to say that the amount of textile material that has been found from the Viking Age is not a lot, right? Because it's not something that often survives 1,000 years in the grave. So what we base our knowledge of their clothing and all that on is a small sample of what we can expect has been out there, right? And so when somebody wants to get really anal about stitches, I'm gonna have to ask, well, where have you found a full garment where you can count the stitches in? Because that's going to be pretty difficult. And so on and so forth, right? So yeah, that's right there is a problem.
How tall are you, Matthias?
I'm a giant, according to Dan.
Ask him if he's got his little heel on or not.
No. but
I'm six.
A point for asking.
I'm 6'1", so that's 186 centimeters.
That's almost like me. I'm 196. So you're not a good example. What about you then, Daniel? How tall are you?
5'10" before I get wet.
Yeah. So that means if there's a certain amount of stitches on the clothes, would your clothes have the stitches very close together to match the amount of stitches on mine?
Okay.
Or would I have a big gap between the stitches on mine with the amount of stitches on yours?
That's oh, fuck! I wish I'd have thought of that before. When I saw it, I wish I was that smart. I believe you about the memory water now.
No, but it's interesting, you know. I think it's important, but of course, you don't go to unless you have some kind of a thing with your eyes, for example. I think if you are at the Viking market and you are there as a Viking, I mean, you remove your shades in the opening hours, you know, unless you have a medical condition to need to wear them, then you take them off. Okay, you move your plastic bags, you don't have a plastic helmet and this kind of stuff to make the experience more full. But I'm thinking the material of the tent, I mean, if you are working at the museum as a part of the museum exhibition, yes, I can see it. But if you go, okay, the biggest market that I have been to is usually the Borre market in Norway or Volin. But it's many years ago I was in Volin, so it wasn't as big as it is now. But it was, for me, it was big, you know. And there's, I don't know how many tents there are there, but a few hundreds. And then I'm thinking, if every tent is made of the correct kind of cotton or wool, or not cotton probably, but wool, I think it doesn't matter. Of course, it's cool if you can do it, and that's your thing. For me, you know, I want to go into the spiritual side of things. I want to, you know, I'm doing this for healing, both for myself and hopefully others. You know, that's, music is the tool, healing is the aim and the goal. Yeah. So that's my focus. I'm thinking, it's great, somebody's making clothes, I'm making music. If we can work together, I have clothes, you have music. We're a good team, you know?
Yeah.
From such a thought perspective, I would have to perform naked, and you would have a whole lot of clothes, but you wouldn't have any music. So,
yeah, but that's how I approach the situation too as an academic, right? Like I have, you know, the theoretical background, the methodologies, the overview of all the source material, and, you know, I can help out essentially, right? It's the same way. Like I can dress you in knowledge of the mythology, and then that can, you know, enhance people's experience of the music or enhance your own experience of the music. That's how I think academics especially should approach their relationship to the public, right? The time of, like, you know, that stern academic authority, that's over, and thankfully, because we didn't need that in the first place. We need cultural use. We need to regenerate, and, as you say, heal. You know, that's really important to do nowadays.
I think the word healing is interesting because in the English language, I'm not sure if I'm correct, but follow my line of thoughts and let me know what you think. Because healing in Norwegian, to be whole, is to be hel. So I'm thinking healing, what it means is becoming whole, to become full, I think. So that's what it's about. You know, maybe it's about becoming as close to our full potential as possible.
Healing's just become such a clinical, medical word, I think, that's focused on, you know, healing a broken bone, or healing something that's wrong with you. Even down to, I think healing is forgotten when it comes to mental health. I think that's something that's overlooked way too much and people don't consider as healing. And that's something that we need to do a bunch of work on as a species, as a society. But outside of that, you know, we need things like you say to make you whole, whether it's to go for walks in nature, which people neglect now, or be around animals, be around birds, or even just to sit in your own thoughts in silence or outside. That's one of the things that I've struggled with recently, is that I've never really been on my own, and I'd been in a relationship from a young age up until you know, fairly recently, and then I got thrown into a world of kind of having to figure out how to be a 33-year-old functioning adult where you have to do things on your own, and it was surprising. Even just sitting and watching TV on my own felt weird and different and uncomfortable almost. And I think again that the healing aspect was to just to do it and get used to it and go through the processes and have things around you that make you feel comfortable. So it doesn't always have to be, you know, this medical thing, I think.
No, I mean, for me, sometimes if I'm really frustrated, well, I play Motorhead really loud. That's healing for me.
Oh yeah,
you know, it always works.
Everybody has their own thing that they do that just kind of helps out.
Yeah, sometimes I'm drumming and singing. That is also great. But sometimes I'm listening to Motorhead. Yeah, the Ace of Spades. See, every new comment is popping up here in a little.
You got
window.
You got it now. Matthias,
no, I don't have the full chat. I just see the first few words.
Oh, okay.
Every new message.
Matthias's healing is that he likes to listen to drum and bass, his own drum and bass from the.
We're never going to about your drum and bass, man.
Matthias told me once that he made drum and bass in his early teens, late teens. So now I like to bring it up at every opportunity.
Yeah, but there are rumors about your drum and bass, man. Even I have heard about it.
Oh, we need to. First of all, we need drum and bass merch. We need some T-shirts with Matthias, like a Nordic style, just performing. And then Midgardsblot 2023, we need Matthias on the stage, him playing his drum and bass. Like, ooh, okay, here it is. I'll be your Bez. So if for anybody who knows the Happy Mondays, like they famously have just a guy that doesn't play any instrument. Well, he has maracas, I think, but really does nothing for the band. But his job is just to stand on stage and dance. So I will be your Bez. You do the drum and bass. And
look, Dan, if you are going to do that in a coconut bikini, then I'm down.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I will be there.
Okay. Okay. Coconut bikini. I'll be Bez. We need like a more authentic version than the maracas though. But something simple because I'm not very good. Maybe like probably the triangle would be most fitting for me, but something that I could just dance around with. You can have the music playing. You could even just do what David Guetta does and just press the button and then fuck off and not even actually do anything. But you could pretend. You could have the headphones on, move your arms a little bit, give the crowd a little bit of action. Yeah. Oh, grab one. Obviously, grab one side of the headphones.
This sounds great. It's going to be party.
I'm going to mention it to Runa, see if we can get it booked for the late night show.
Oh, of course, yeah. Viking drum and bass. There we are.
Yeah.
Because Benny, I wanted to ask you about this. Was it you that put on a show, like late night after everything was finished? Because I had never understood what happened in the guild hall after the last act played on each day. There was always a huge line to go into the guild hall, and there was like some sort of after party that I was never invited to, and I never knew what it was. And then somebody said that maybe it was it you and Gustav maybe playing some music?
Our main gig with Folke this year was after Vardruna.
Okay.
In the Guildhall, we had our 15th anniversary there.
Oh, okay.
And,
That's what I
yeah,
saw.
that
Then.
was great. And on the last day, it was Gustav and yeah, with friends Runa Hild and Kjell and stuff. Astral side. It's always it's great. I love playing the Guildhall. It's so good fun.
Yeah. Oh, I remember.
You missed that, did you? Huh?
I did. I didn't know what was happening. Somebody
Ah.
told me. Somebody actually told me it was a silent disco. So that's what I heard. So but next year I'm there 100%.
Yeah. We usually since I think it's year 3 of Midgardsblot, we've had our main gig has been in the Guildhall. And then this year we had one on the small stage in the shopping area there, and one at the Valhalla stage. But our main gig is usually in the Guildhall. To say it that way, the gig we have a set list for. This year we were not agreeing on the set list, but at least we all had a set list. It didn't the same, but we had one, so the other gigs we didn't plan.
Yeah, I feel like you guys just do your own thing.
Yeah, we do.
You just, but do you prefer it that way?
I mean, there are, yeah, I definitely do. But there are challenges to it as well, you know. Folk it's been now, you know, I started folk in 27, so 15 years. And we've had maybe 5 rehearsals. And of course, not with a full lineup, never. And this is great. I love it. I absolutely love it. But it is also challenges to it because, you know, on the new album, for example, it's very much song-based, the new album, I would say. Have you guys heard it?
The new album?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
A little.
Yeah. No, but it's very song-based. I would say it's more song-based than the first one. And this album has been created as one album.
I have read the lyrics though. So
Perfect.
I will be. So you did ask me to read the lyrics, and I did do that today, but I didn't get around to popping on. I've had a busy few weeks.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But I'm very happy you read the lyrics because those are very important for me. This one,
yeah, you can tell.
The first one, there ain't no lyrics. You know, there's one sentence. I'm not calling the rune songs. I'm not calling that lyrics. On the first one, there is one line: "Odin, let thy wisdom come." That's the lyrics on the first album. But on the new one, there's 5 songs or 4 songs and a reading with proper lyrics. And to me, this is very important. That is why if you buy the CD or you go on Bandcamp, you get them in 4 languages. I sing and read in Norwegian, and they're also in English, German, and Spanish for people to be able to take part in the journey.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you have to pay for that doing on separately, I guess, or do you translate yourself?
No, Justin, a Welsh friend of mine living in Norway for many years, did the English translation. My girlfriend did the German, and
oh, nice.
A Mexican lady called Ana did the Spanish.
So, that's very cool.
I'm very happy for that I managed to get that through. There was a couple of arguments to make it happen, but I didn't give in. So I'm very happy for that. But the challenge with not rehearsing is, of course, when it's very song-based, well, it doesn't always sound that good when you try to do the songs, you know. So, but I'm thinking Folka has always had a slogan, by the people, for the people, with the people. I'm thinking as long as we give it our best, and, you know, okay, sometimes it's not completely in tune, but I don't think it matters that much.
No.
But
No.
I would also like to be able to, have a lineup that could do some of the songs. I mean, we do the songs, but in a safer way. We never have a safety line, We don't even have anything to tell us what tone to sing in. We don't have a instrument with tones. So sometimes it's challenging. You're up there on stage and you're with the audience and and then whoa, where am I supposed to start this song? We're 5 people. We're all supposed to sing. It should be in the right note, And that's a challenge, of course, with not rehearsing.
I guess it means that every show is going to be different as well.
Yeah, but
everyone's unique.
When I started Folke, that was one of the things from the very beginning. We're never going to do the same show twice, and we haven't done that so far for 15 years.
Oh, wonderful.
So, and the 2 other shows that we did at Midgardsblot this year, we didn't have any plan. When I grabbed the microphone and started talking to the audience, I let the rally. I didn't know what was going to be the first song. When I'm asking Martin, I did that. I remember, I think it was on the Valhalla stage. I asked Martin or Dane. I asked him, Martin, do you want to do something? And he was like, yeah. And it was an honest thing, the situation was honest. I asked Martin, do you want to do something? And he said, yeah, I can do something. And he did something, but it wasn't planned,
Do you think in a way that almost makes it closer to how it would traditionally have been? Because I imagine, we know very little about music from the Viking Age, but I imagine they wouldn't have been set lists. It would be more of a fluid kind of jamming type situation. I'm
thinking quite possibly that is why you have this, we call it omkved. Basically, it's kind of a chorus, in many other so-called traditional songs, meaning you have a story going through the song, and then every second and fourth line, for example, is repetitive. Yeah, I'm thinking this is, first of all, it's to bring everybody in, with the people. Everybody knows those 2 lines. It might be a different structure also, but let's stick with this example, yeah? Everybody knows those lines. It gives me, for example, or you, the main singer, a chance to draw your breath. It also gives you a chance to develop the story further because you have a little break. So you can come up with the next line. And you know that there and there and there, the repetitive lines will come back. So I'm thinking this, I don't know this, but I'm just thinking logically that sounds like a good reason to have this. It's bringing everybody in, it's including everybody, and it gives the main singer these chances I was mentioning. And
so we actually,
sorry.
We actually have good research on this, and it is quite similar to what you're describing right there. There were a couple of Harvard dudes who went to Serbia back in the 50s or the 60s, something like that, and maybe it was even before. And recorded and analyzed the songs that folk singers were singing there. And it is exactly that situation. You have a skeleton that's built up around like a chorus. You have a general narrative that everybody more or less expects to unfold in the story. But so what the singers do, that they have like these stock scenes in their heads that they can then play out. And the best example we have from the Nordic world is the story of Sigurd the Dragon Slayer, right? Because if you go to the Ramsund stone in Sweden and you look at the carving that's from somewhere in the 11th century, the early 11th century, if I remember correctly, right? You have Sigurd killing Fafnir. You have Sigurd tasting the blood from his heart as he's like roasting it over a fire. You have Regin, who had his head cut off, and you can see like it is Regin because there are like tools from a smithy lying around him, so it's the smith. And then you have the birds sitting in the tree. That's where he learns that Regin is going to betray him because he understands the speech of birds once he's been drinking from the blood of the dragon. So, I guess you've been drinking the blood of the dragon too, huh?
Yeah.
Well, wasn't it? I thought it was eating the heart.
Well,
my mistake. Is it different in different sources?
Regin wants to eat the heart. So he asks Sigurd to roast it, and then Sigurd touches the heart to see if it's warm enough, and that's when he burns his finger and puts it in his mouth, and then he tastes the blood. Okay. That's how he understands the speech of the birds. And then the last element that you have in the story is the horse Grani that has the gold on his back, and right, that is exactly the chorus in the song Grani ber gullið á heiði. I think I kind of said that in Faroese. Like Grani carried the gold of the heath, right? So like all of these elements are present in the written stories that we have from a couple of centuries later, and then from folk songs that we have from several centuries later. And that's how you remember a song. And what we know from these Serbian singers is that they, when they're singing folk songs, that they will use all of the known elements, and then they will add their own little twist to things and be creative with it. And so there's like a sort of like a scaffolding that is the narrative, and then there's creative freedom in and around that scaffolding. And so, yeah, it makes perfect sense what you're saying, Benny.
We have a song that everybody knows in Norway because you sing it in the schools and everything. It's called Kråkevisa, the crow song. Mm-hmm. As far as I know, this song, there is known more than 100 different variations of the lyrics for it, and on more than 70 different melodies.
Wow. Okay.
So,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. The story is somebody is going out to, I think he's going out to get wood or something, and he sees this enormously big crow, and the story unfolds. They manage to kill the crow, and then they make the beak they make into a boat, and the eyes they use for windows and all this stuff. There is one variation that I've heard about that I would like to find, and it's the same story, but it's a man, not a crow. I would like to find this, but I haven't heard it. But it's interesting, this, I think.
But I do think we're going to have to wrap this up. Matthias, you have to be out of here shortly. So, Benny, please come back and we will talk just about all the music. We'll get Bob to book you back in a couple of months.
That would be great. But
I feel like we could sit here, especially if we had a couple of beers. I think we could sit here for fucking 3-4 hours and just discuss
easily. But, maybe I can throw in here that I would very much, of course, appreciate it. This record. I've been releasing records or been playing on records now since 1993 or 4, I believe. So it's quite a few years. And this new album is by far the biggest project I've ever done. I've been working hard on this for 3 years, basically. So I would very much appreciate it if people check it out.
Where can people find it?
It's on all this digital stuff, Bandcamp, Spotify, YouTube, and this grimfrost.com has it available on CD. There you get the booklet with the lyrics and stuff. Am I sneaky if I'm throwing in a couple of commercial statements about it?
No, do it.
No,
of course, do it.
You're welcome to do that.
Thank you. I'm saying this because it gives a bigger understanding of it, I think. It's written on the record. What feels true to me, this I don't know if it's on Bandcamp. On Bandcamp, you also find the translations of the lyrics and stuff. I hope you bother reading them so that you understand what it's about.
Oh, definitely do read them. They're wonderful.
Thank you. But it says received and performed by, not written and performed by, because this is how it feels. You know, it feels like I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Yes. I said yes many years ago. I didn't know what I said yes to, but I did say yes, and I stand for that. So I've said, bring it on, you know. And the album is called Et liv uten ende, which means one life without end. So it's about the circle of life, and I hope that it will bring people good.
Oh, without a doubt, I'm sure it will. So say the band name again slowly for people, because it's certainly for non-Norwegian speakers, they sometimes struggle, and then we get messages in the group asking how to spell it and all sorts. So
yeah, it's called Folket bortafor Nordavinden. You can see it on
your T-shirt.
I will move we made 100 copies of this for
nice.
this year.
Wonderful. And then
Kelly Cook, thank you.
We will.
Sorry.
I was gonna say we'll make sure we put it in with the episode, link it in the description so people can find it. But if you can, don't just stream it. Obviously, streaming is good and listening to it. But if you can spare the money to buy it, please buy it, and it'll help Benny out, I'm sure.
Definitely will.
Yeah. So just if you can spare, the price of buying, even if it's on Bandcamp, I think you can buy a single track. Just if you can buy a single track, obviously buy the album if you can, but it really helps all the artists out, all the musicians we have on here, just taking that extra little bit to help. I'm sure they really appreciate it.
Yeah, we do. But if your budget is tight, please stream it, please.
No, yeah, stream it and buy it. Benny, don't let them get away lightly. Stream it and buy it.
Yeah, I appreciate it if you buy it, but I've been broke.
Yeah,
I've been wondering where the next meal is going to come from, so I know how it can be.
You're too nice. Just tell them to buy it. Buy it. No, obviously, only buy it if you can. Yeah, Benny, thank you very much. Matthias, where can people find you?
You can always find me on Instagram and my website. Just put in my name, Matthias Norvig, and you'll find me. And there you go.
There we go. Benny, what about social media?
I'm not sure how social it is really, but
well,
we can
get into that next episode.
Yeah. You can find me under my name, Benny Bråten with a double A, and also Folke. You can find it there. On Facebook, I made this Instagram thing.
Okay.
Really sure I understand totally how it works, but people have been telling me for years I needed to make one. So 2 weeks ago or something, I did it.
Oh, nice.
Hey, technological stuff, For a long time, I thought, well, hey, I have a cell phone, I have email, I have Facebook. How much do you expect me to spend my life online,
I mean, enjoy it, or try to enjoy it.
Can I tell you about the name?
Of course.
Just one quick thing, yeah?
Of course.
Folket bortafor Nordavinden, that's supposed to come from the first or the oldest surviving reference to our part of the world. A Greek guy called Hesiodos, or maybe you call him Hesiod, maybe in English. He wrote, now I could see you go into your academic archives, Matthias.
Yeah.
Hesiod or Hesiodos.
Yeah.
He wrote about the people from the Northwind 700 years before zero. So it's supposed to be the oldest surviving literary reference to our part of the world. Of course, that might mean today's Germany. This we don't know. It was the people up there. That's where the name comes from.
The Hyperboreans.
Yep. But I cannot use the Hyperboreans, because of political things.
Yeah.
That has been squatted.
That is something. That is something that certain people have ruined for everybody.
Yeah. I'm taking some of these things that have been attempted, ruined. I'm openly and willingly taking back. But I think this the Hyperboreans it's a little infected.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we are gonna have to wrap it up.
Sorry for my.
You're coming back. You are definitely coming back, and we're doing this again.
Yes.
If you enjoy the show, please leave us a 5-star rating and positive review wherever you listen to the podcast. And then if you can support us on Patreon, it's just at Nordic Mythology Podcast. You get episodes earlier than anybody else on there now as well. So I think we're 2-3 weeks advanced. So this will go on Patreon 2 or 3 weeks before it goes out to the general public. So you get, if you listen to us and for some reason you can't get enough of listening to us and you want to listen to the next one before everyone else, please jump over to Patreon and help us keep growing. And it helps us, employ people to help work with the show, buy new equipment, and just do cool stuff.
Maybe if we figure out this chat thing before next time or some other time, we could involve the patrons in the talk.
We'll do a Q&A next time.
Yeah. I was trying to do it, but it's really difficult on my phone to like be part of the chat.
I guess it's tough on your phone, and then with you as well. I think when you're on your phone, it digitizes a lot as well. If you speak at the same time, it could just cuts you off. So get your internet back.
I will. Hopefully. I mean, you never know.
No, you really don't know. All right, let's get out of here. Benny, thank
you guys for having me, both Daniel, Matthias, and all you patron people there. Am I saying that right?
Yes, you are. Thank you very much. Like I say, you're welcome back. I feel like you're going to be a constant guest on the podcast, a recurring guest.
I hope so. I'm enjoying this very much. It's a really interesting conversation.
No, you are. Yeah. Thank you very much. Take care. Thank you for everyone for listening. See you later.